In episode 55, titled Secure Wi-Fi and Wireless Access from End to End, we start with a simple premise. Wireless is convenience layered over radio physics, and convenience only stays safe when identity and encryption are disciplined from the first probe request to the last roaming handshake. Everyone loves fast logons and seamless movement, but under the hood, you need precise choices about who may attach, how they prove it, and what they can reach once they're on the air. We will anchor on strong authentication, modern ciphers, clean management paths, hardened access points, and monitoring that turns strange radio behavior into actionable signals. Think of this as turning an open medium into a gated neighborhood, where every guest wears a verified badge and every door records who passed through and why. Segment intent with service set identifiers, SSIDs, that match populations, then back them with distinct virtual local area networks, VLANs, and policies. A corporate SSID serves managed devices bound to directory groups and device posture. A guest SSID lands in an isolated path with strict egress and time limits. A contractor SSID uses federation and shorter lifetimes. And an IoT SSID corrals sensors and specialty gear into minimal reach enclaves. This is not aesthetic. Each SSID maps to different authentication, addressing, and east-west rules, so you never need temporary exceptions that grow into permanent holes. When someone asks for access, you place them in the population whose rules you already understand, and the downstream network behaves exactly as your diagram promises. Strong identity only scales with automation. So implement fast, automated certificate enrollment for both machines and users and rotate credentials regularly. Use a managed public key infrastructure with simple certificate enrollment protocol, SEP, enrollment over secure transport, EST, or automated certificate management environment, ACME, and tie issuance to device compliance so untrusted hardware never receives valid certificates. Keep lifetime short, publish revocation, and monitor renewal health so WPA3 Enterprise does not fail because someone forgot to roll keys. For the few flows that still need shared secrets, like a temporary maintenance SSID, use unique, per-user credentials with expirations and audit them like keys to a wiring closet. Your wireless should age gracefully without calendar-driven outage drama. Treat controller and management planes as crown jewel systems. Lock down access with mutual transport layer security, MTLS, so both administrators and platforms prove identity. Enforce role-based access with least privilege, and require change approvals that leave durable records. Do not manage over user data paths. Reach controllers and access points through jump hosts on dedicated management networks with session recording turned on. Backup configurations and keys, sign releases, and ensure time synchronization so logs line up across devices when you review an incident. A small habit, refusing to just browse to the controller from the desk, prevents the casual paths that become permanent vulnerabilities. Harden the access points themselves. They are computers on poles and ceilings, not magic boxes. Favor platforms with secure boot so only signed firmware runs, and keep firmware current with change windows that include a rollback plan. Disable open console access, set strong local recovery methods, and enable tamper detection or alerts where hardware can be reached by the public. Physically secure mounting points and cabling, because a ladder and a screwdriver are still attack tools. When an access point reboots, upgrades, or moves channels, your logs should show who triggered the change and why. And your inventory should reconcile serial numbers, locations, and configurations without guesswork. Radio Resource Management, RRM, planning does as much for security as it does for user experience. Clean channel allocation and careful power tuning reduce co-channel interference and prevent your signal from lighting up the parking lot where adversaries test evil twin tricks. Start with a survey, then set static guardrails for channels and power, and let controlled RRM adjust within those bounds as occupancy changes. Validate that automatic choices avoid overlap with neighboring tenants and that indoor coverage does not leak well beyond your footprint. Good radio hygiene produces fewer deauths, fewer retries, and clearer baselines, conditions that make anomalies stand out when something malicious or misconfigured appears. Detect and contain rogues with tuned wireless intrusion prevention system (WIPS) responses that favor precision over theatrics. Look for clones that mirror your SSID and security settings but broadcast from unfamiliar BSSIDs. Watch for spoofed beacons with suspicious capabilities and detect unauthorized access points on your wire by correlating MAC addresses and switch port data. Use management frame protection to blunt deauthentication floods and configure containment only where policy and law permit. The goal is quick, accurate identification with evidence you can act on, a timeline of the rogue's appearance, the radios and channels involved, and the impacted clients. Make sure your team rehearses the difference between an evil twin in the lobby and a misprovisioned lab access point on an unused jack. Reduce lateral movement by filtering client-to-client paths that have no legitimate purpose on shared media. Enable client isolation on guest and contractor SSIDs so peers cannot browse one another. Constrain broadcast and multicast traffic that bleeds across the air, and validate that peer-to-peer discovery features are disabled where they offer more risk than value. For corporate populations that need collaboration features, scope exceptions to specific devices and ports rather than opening broad ranges. The simplest habit-forcing traffic through known gateways where policy and logging exist turns the open field of wireless into a set of curated conversations you can audit. Watch the right wireless signals and route them to humans who can act. Authentication failures clustered by SSID, by access point, or by time hint at misconfigurations, device drift, or credential abuse. Sudden storms of deauth frames or management anomalies may indicate interference, a faulty radio, or an attack in progress. Monitor roaming behavior, load, and retransmissions to catch creeping interference or coverage gaps that drive users to unsafe workarounds. Alerts should include the identity involved, the radios, the channels, and links to packet captures or controller logs so the on-call can move beyond "it looks noisy" to "here is the sequence and the likely cause." Validate in the real world, not just on a whiteboard. Test coverage and roaming with actual devices that represent your population while enforcement is active. EAPTLS live, protected management frames on, client isolation configured, and posture gates in place. Measure throughput under normal and busy conditions and record where handoffs occur and whether they remain seamless. Practice certificate expirations in a lab, simulate controller failovers, and verify that monitoring still emits the right evidence when components misbehave. The outcome is confidence that your strong settings survive contact with concrete walls, microwaves, elevators, and a crowded auditorium. A focused example makes the pattern tangible. You are onboarding an Internet of Things population, badges, sensors, and printers that cannot run a full enterprise stack but must never mix with corporate devices. You deploy a constrained IoT SSID that uses certificate-based or unique per-device credentials enrolled through a managed workflow. Land the devices in a dedicated VLAN with only the few egress paths they require, and block east-west entirely. The firewall rules name each allowed destination and port, the resolver limits DNS to your servers, and the controller denies management frames that try to move them elsewhere. When a new device appears without a certificate or proper attributes, it lands in quarantine with no access beyond onboarding portals, and that decision is visible in logs tied to the device's identity and switch port. We close with a small, high-impact sprint that hardens what matters most. Retire weak SSIDs and sunset long-standing WPA2 exceptions with a dated plan. Enforce WPA3 enterprise with EAPTLS on corporate populations. And verify wireless intrusion prevention is tuned to detect rogues without flooding you with noise. Lock management behind MTLS and jump hosts with roles that match job functions. And record one before and after metric set auth success rates, deauth events, roaming failures, and rogue detections that proves the change improved both safety and experience. When this sprint finishes, your wireless estate will behave like a disciplined extension of your identity and encryption program, not a parallel universe running on good intentions and hope. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.